My name is Cindy Allen, and I am 32 years old. I used to think I understood what marriage was: compromise, tenderness, the small rituals that made a home feel warm. But 6 months after giving birth, my world felt fragile. My body was still adjusting, my emotions still raw, my days blending into long stretches of feeding schedules, unfinished chores, and exhaustion that settled deep into my bones. I kept telling myself it was normal, that every new mother felt this way. But what I didn't know was that something much darker had already begun forming beneath the surface of my marriage. It started with what I thought was a simple inconvenience. My own laptop refused to turn on, and I had a deadline to submit a report for work. My husband wasn't home. He'd said he was running out to get groceries, so I grabbed his laptop from the desk. He always left it open. Always. I didn't think twice. But the moment I clicked into the browser, the autocomplete popped up with a phrase that made my stomach clench so hard I couldn't breathe. How to convince your wife to get plastic surgery? For a full second, my body simply froze. My hands hovered above the keyboard, trembling. It felt like the air around me changed temperature, like someone had opened a window in winter. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Spam, a random suggestion, maybe he clicked the wrong thing. But dread, quiet, cold, insistent, began crawling up my spine. I clicked into his search history, and that was when my heart truly broke. Page after page of articles, forum posts, before and after images, and blog discussions on mommy makeovers, breast lifts, tummy tucks, liposuction. Some were bookmarked. Others were saved in folders with tidy little names like body goals and postpartum solutions. One folder caught my eye: solutions. A name too deliberate, too clinical. Something inside me whispered not to open it yet. Some truths feel like poison. You sense the danger before you even taste it. My breath came in uneven gasps. I felt my C-section scar ache, as though it remembered the pain before my mind did. 6 months ago, I had given life to our daughter. My body had been stretched, torn, stitched back together. I had carried a child for 9 long months, endured swollen ankles, back pain, sleepless nights. And this was what he'd been doing? Researching ways to fix me. The humiliation crawled across my skin like fire ants. Suddenly, past comments began snapping into place like puzzle pieces I should have seen months ago. You used to dress up more before the baby. We should get a gym membership together, for motivation. I miss your old body, but you're still cute. Cute, like I was a pet he was patting on the head. I closed the laptop and sat there, staring at nothing. The fridge hummed. The baby monitor crackled softly. My entire world felt like it had shifted to the left, leaving me disoriented and alone. The door opened behind me. He walked in carrying 2 bags of groceries, humming a tune under his breath. When he looked up and saw my face, his footsteps faltered. "Cindy, what's wrong?" My voice came out quieter and more trembling than I wanted. "Sit down." He frowned but obeyed, sensing something was wrong. "I used your laptop," I began. "I saw everything." Confusion flickered across his face, then irritation. "You were snooping?" That snapped the last thread of my restraint. "Snooping?" I repeated, my voice rising. "I found pages and pages of surgery articles. I found saved photos. I found you researching how to convince me to change my body. And you're upset about privacy?" He threw his hands up defensively. "Okay, but you're blowing this out of proportion." "Out of proportion?" My voice cracked. "How long have you been planning this?" He sighed like I was annoying him. "I wasn't planning anything. I was just trying to help you. You've been insecure lately, and I thought researching options might, give you solutions." There it was, that word again. Solutions. My stomach lurched. "If you cared about my confidence," I said, my voice shaking, "you would support me. Not secretly look up ways to fix my body like I'm some kind of project. I am recovering. I'm still healing. My voice broke completely. I just had your daughter." Instead of softening, his jaw tightened. "Look, Cindy, I'm just being realistic. Your body has changed. A lot. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to improve yourself. Plenty of women do it." "That's their choice," I shot back, "not something their husband manipulates them into." He scoffed, then mumbled, "You're too sensitive." The words slammed into me like a fist. I stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. "You don't get to criticize my body. You didn't carry a child. You didn't get cut open. You didn't stitch yourself back together emotionally every night when I cried alone in the bathroom." His mouth opened, then closed again. For the first time, he looked cornered. But he still didn't apologize. Not really. When the argument spiraled into shouting, I finally stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of pregnancy, every subtle insult disguised as concern. Somewhere around midnight, I got up, quietly walked back to the living room, and opened his laptop again. My cursor hovered over the solutions folder. My pulse thudded in my ears. I didn't click it. I wasn't ready, not tonight. When I began closing the other tabs, I noticed something I hadn't seen before, a faint highlight on one email, like it had been opened recently. The subject line made my chest tighten. Your appointment request has been received. And though I didn't open it, I already felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The next morning, I woke up with a heaviness that felt wired into my bones. My body was exhausted, but my mind was buzzing like a hornet trapped in a jar. I shuffled into the kitchen, hoping caffeine might at least numb the ache in my chest. Instead, I found a folded note on the counter, short, dismissive, written in his quick, careless handwriting. I'm sorry if you misunderstood my intentions. I never wanted to upset you. Misunderstood. The word tasted like metal in my mouth, a twist of the blame, a gentle nudge suggesting that I wasn't seeing things clearly. I stared at the note until my vision blurred. A part of me wondered how long I'd been explaining away his behavior, how many times I'd softened my own hurt so he wouldn't feel uncomfortable. As I fed our daughter, I couldn't stop thinking about the search history, the bookmarks, the folder labeled Solutions. I kept replaying the moment I found it all, each memory like a blade grazing across my skin. When he came home from work, he acted like a man approaching a wild animal. Slow movements, cautious eyes. Can we talk? He asked. I didn't trust myself to speak without breaking. He took my silence as permission. I didn't meant to hurt you. You're struggling with confidence and... Stop, I cut him off. Just stop. He blinked, startled. You didn't do this for me, I said quietly. You did it for you. His jaw tightened. You're being dramatic. And those 3 words, were the moment something inside me cracked so loudly I swore I could hear it. I started therapy the next day. Not because I was falling apart, but because I was starting to pull myself together. I didn't tell him. Not yet. I needed space. Mental, emotional, spiritual. When he found out, he sulked like a teenager grounded from his phone. So now you're hiding things from me? I stared at him, really stared. Do you even hear yourself? I whispered. You researched surgery behind my back. You planned something about my body. Therapy is nothing compared to that. He shut his mouth. A few days later, he suggested couples therapy, as if a neutral third party could somehow dilute the weight of what he'd done. We went anyway, and I learned so much. He kept framing everything as stress, miscommunication, poor timing. He even told the therapist he thought maybe surgery would help me feel beautiful again. The therapist looked at him long and hard before asking a simple question. Did she ever say she wanted surgery? Silence. His silence. But something else shifted in me too. Clarity. Every session made me see how carefully he'd wrapped manipulation in silk. How often he'd asked me to shrink so he wouldn't feel small. After therapy one night, he went to take a shower. And for the first time in days, the house felt calm. Not peaceful, just still. His phone buzzed on the bathroom counter, then buzzed again and again. I didn't pick it up to snoop. I picked it up to stop the noise. But the moment my hand touched it, the phone lit up with an incoming call. Pacific Aesthetics Cosmetic Clinic. My blood iced over. I answered on instinct. The voice on the other end was too cheerful. Hi, we're calling to confirm the mommy makeover consultation for next Wednesday. The room tilted. I'm sorry, I managed. Whose consultation? She repeated his name. She repeated mommy makeover. She repeated scheduled last week. Last week. After therapy, after apologies, after promises to stop. My pulse roared in my ears. When he walked out of the bathroom minutes later, smiling, towel draped over his shoulder, I could barely hear anything except the echo of that woman's voice. Who was that? He asked lightly. A clinic, I said, confirming your appointment. He froze, water still dripping from his hair. What appointment? Don't, I whispered. Just don't. His face twisted. I was trying to help you. I laughed, a broken, humorless sound. Help me? By going behind my back again? After telling me you understood how much it hurt me? You're blowing this out of proportion. There it is, I snapped. The line you use every time I catch you doing something horrible. He followed me through the house as I started throwing clothes into a bag. Begging, pleading, rationalizing, minimizing. None of it mattered now. I'm leaving, I said. I'm taking the baby. I need space. He reached for my arm. Cindy, don't do this. I pulled away so fast he stumbled. He trailed me to the door, panicked, grabbing his phone and calling his mother like that would somehow guilt me into staying. I drove to Myra's house with shaking hands and hot tears blurring the road. When she opened the door, she didn't even ask what happened. She just wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "You're safe now." Hours later, after calming down, I unpacked the diaper bag. Small clothes, wipes, a pacifier, a bottle. And then, a glossy white card slid out and fell onto the floor. Pacific Aesthetics Cosmetic Clinic. Not mine, I had never put it there. Which meant he did. He placed a surgeon's card in our daughter's diaper bag so I would find it eventually. It wasn't a reminder. It was a warning. And the realization chilled me to the core. My daughter slept beside me in the portable crib Myra kept for visiting nieces, her tiny chest rising and falling in peaceful, measured breaths. The contrast between her innocence and the storm inside me was almost unbearable. Every time my phone buzzed on the nightstand, my heart clenched. Another missed call, another text, another attempt to pull me back into the chaos I had just escaped. I kept ignoring them. By the second day, it wasn't just him calling. His mother, his sister, even his father, who rarely spoke more than a sentence when we were in the same room. Their messages all carried the same tone. "You're overreacting. Come home." "He's worried sick. This isn't something to break a marriage over." Easy for them to say. They weren't the ones being dissected like a project. But when I saw my mother's name flash on the screen, I froze. I couldn't talk to her, not yet. Not after she had spent weeks saying things like, "Marriage is hard," and "maybe he meant well." I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. By the time it stopped, I was already fighting tears. I wanted her comfort, her voice, the familiar calm she used to bring me. But she didn't understand. Not really. She still believed marriage was something you held together with duct tape and denial. I set the phone down and walked to the kitchen, where Myra was stirring a pot of soup. "You don't have to worry about dinner," she said gently. "You've barely eaten." I forced a tiny smile. "I'm okay." "You're not," she said, reaching out to squeeze my hand. "But you will be." Her kindness made my throat tighten. That was when my phone buzzed again. This time, the name on the screen made my stomach drop. "Dad!" My father rarely called. He was a quiet, steady man who believed actions mattered more than words. If he was calling me, repeatedly, it wasn't casual. My hand trembled as I answered. "Dad?" His voice came through sharp with worry, like someone who had been holding his breath for hours. "Where are you?" I closed my eyes. "At Myra's." "Are you safe?" "Yes." "What happened?" The question broke the dam. All the words I had held inside, the anger, the humiliation, the fear, the shame, spilled out in shaky fragments. I told him about the laptop, the bookmarked procedures, the way my husband blamed me, minimized me, gaslit me. I told him about the therapy sessions that felt like rehearsals instead of healing. And then I told him about the phone call from the clinic. My father didn't interrupt, not once, but I heard his breathing change. Slow, heavy, laced with a fury so calm it was terrifying. When I finally finished, the silence stretched. Then he spoke. "I'm getting in the car," he said simply. "I'm coming to get you and the baby." "Dad?" "No." His voice was steel. "You are not going back there. Not with someone who treats you like that." I pressed a hand to my mouth to keep a sob from escaping. He softened his tone just a little. "Pack your things. I'll be there in 2 hours." "Okay," I whispered. "Okay." He hung up before I could say more. When I turned around, Myra was watching me with wide eyes. "Your dad's coming?" she asked. I nodded, tears spilling. He sounded furious. "Good," she said firmly. "It's time someone stood up for you." I packed with trembling hands. Baby clothes, bottles, my laptop, my documents, the stupid business card from the clinic that made bile rise in my throat every time I looked at it. 2 hours later, headlights swept across the living room curtains. I opened the door before my father even had a chance to knock. He didn't say anything at first. He just stepped forward and pulled me into his arms. And I broke, completely, sobbing into his chest, shaking, breathing in the scent of home and safety and everything I had been missing. He held me tightly, one arm around me and the other gently rubbing my back. When he finally pulled away, he cupped my face in both hands. "No man gets to treat my daughter like this," he said, voice low and trembling with restrained rage. "No man." I nodded, unable to speak. He went to check on the baby next. The way his face softened when he saw her sleeping, it made my heart clench. He lifted her carefully, holding her against his chest like she was the most precious thing in the world. Then he turned to me, eyes hard again. Let's go home. We gathered my things and loaded them into the car, but as I placed the diaper bag inside, something caught his eye. The business card. He picked it up, turning it over slowly. His jaw flexed. What is this? My voice shook. He put it in the diaper bag. My father's nostrils flared, the kind of anger that didn't shout. It burned. He didn't throw the card. He didn't crumple it. He placed it gently on the dashboard, as if saving it for later. I didn't know what that meant, but it sent a chill down my spine. Halfway home, my phone started buzzing again. His name this time. Then his mother. Then him again. My father glanced at the screen, then at me. You don't have to answer, he said. I know. But even with my father beside me, protective, unwavering, I still felt the fear curling in my stomach. Because eventually I would have to face him, and I had no idea how far he would go to get me back. The drive to my parents' house felt endless, even though I knew every turn by heart. Streetlights streaked across the windshield, each one passing like a silent countdown toward a confrontation I didn't know I was ready for. My father kept one hand on the steering wheel, the other resting protectively near my daughter's car seat, as if guarding both of us from anything that might come our way. When we finally pulled into the driveway, my mother was already standing at the door. Her face was pale, her hands wrung together, her eyes red from crying. She rushed to me the moment I stepped out of the car. Oh God, Cindy. She pulled me into her arms before I could say a word. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you told me to try harder, because you thought he meant well, because you thought marriage was a problem I could fix by ignoring it. I swallowed the words and hugged her back. Inside, the house smelled like chamomile tea and the faint vanilla scent of laundry detergent. Comfort, warmth, a reminder of who I used to be before insecurity wrapped around me like wet wool. We sat in the living room while my father carried my daughter to her old nursery crib, the one my parents kept just in case. When he returned, his expression was dark, stormy. Tell your mother everything, he said quietly. I did. Every detail, every insult, every hidden search, every lie, every manipulation disguised as love. By the time I got to the part about the surgery consultation and the business card in the diaper bag, my mother wasn't sitting anymore. She was pacing the room like a woman fighting the urge to tear down walls. That man, she hissed under her breath, that man had the nerve, the absolute nerve. My father raised a hand. Let her finish. When I finally fell silent, my mother's face was burning with fury. She grabbed her phone, scrolling through contacts with trembling fingers. Mom? I croaked. No, she snapped. He will not get away with this. Before I could stop her, she pressed the call button. It was him. The moment he answered, she unleashed a storm I didn't know my mother was capable of. Her voice was sharp, slicing through every one of his excuses. She called out his manipulation, his deceit, his cruelty. She reminded him that I carried his child, endured surgery, fought through recovery, and he repaid me by treating my body like a defective product. He tried to speak. She cut him off. You do not get to talk, she spat. Not after what you've done to my daughter. But she wasn't finished. Next, she called his parents. I heard her half of the conversation from across the room. Accusations, disbelief, rage. She demanded to know how they raised a son who believed control was love, manipulation was care, and humiliation was acceptable. His mother tried defending him. My mother shut it down instantly. I hope you're proud, she said, because your son nearly destroyed her. When she finally hung up, she looked at me with guilt clouding her eyes. I should have believed you sooner, she whispered. I shook my head. You didn't know. But I should have, she said, her voice cracking. You needed support, not pressure. We cried together. Quiet, shaky sobs of women who had loved wrong, forgiven too much, and carried pain alone for far too long. Late that afternoon, a knock echoed through the house. My stomach dropped. It was him. My father moved first, quick, silent, like a storm gathering strength. He opened the door only a few inches, blocking most of the entrance with his body. You need to leave, he said. I need to talk to Cindy, my husband pleaded. Please, please. My father didn't budge. She doesn't want to talk to you. But I knew this moment had to happen. I couldn't really move on until I closed the door myself. I stepped forward. Dad, I said softly, it's okay. He looked at me for a long moment, then stepped aside just enough for me to face the man I had once believed would protect my heart. My husband looked rough, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, clothes wrinkled. But there was something else, too, a desperation that felt performative, like he had rehearsed this face in the mirror. "Cindy," he breathed, "I'm so sorry." He reached for my hand. I pulled back. His expression faltered. "Please, can you just listen?" I nodded stiffly. "Say what you need to say." "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was scared. You've been so distant since the baby, and I thought if you felt more confident, if you liked your body again, you'd be happier. I was trying to fix things. For us." "There it is again," I whispered. "Fixing me." He swallowed. "I just wanted us to be okay." "Then why did you book a consultation behind my back?" I asked. "After I told you how much it hurt me, after therapy, after you promised to stop?" He shut his eyes. I panicked. I thought if you saw the possibilities, you'd change your mind. My breath caught. He still didn't get it. "You violated my trust," I said, voice trembling. "You turned my insecurities into your weapon. You discussed my body with strangers. You slipped a surgeon's card into our daughter's diaper bag like I wouldn't notice." His eyes widened. "I didn't—" "Don't lie," I snapped. "Not now." For a moment he looked angry, just a flicker, but it was enough. I saw the truth. This wasn't love, it was ownership. Control. Fear that I wouldn't remain the version of me he wanted. He stepped forward again, tears welling. "Cindy, we can fix this. Don't throw away our marriage over a misunderstanding." My voice steadied, becoming cold and clear. "Would you want our daughter to marry a man like you?" He froze. No words, no excuses. Just silence, the sharpest confession of all. "I didn't think so," I said softly. "I'm done." He opened his mouth to argue, but my father stepped forward like a shadow rising behind me. "That's enough," he said. "Leave." This time he obeyed. He walked down the driveway, shoulders hunched, but I didn't let guilt follow him. I watched until he turned the corner, disappearing from sight and from my life. Inside, my father picked up the business card from the kitchen counter. He stared at it. Then, without a word, he tore it straight down the middle. The sound was small but final, a quiet, perfect ending. I felt something inside me break loose, not grief, not loss, relief. The first breath of freedom I'd taken in a long, long time. The morning after the confrontation felt strangely calm, like a storm had passed and left the world in muted colors. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up bracing myself for criticism or disappointment. The house was quiet, the air soft, and when I held my daughter against my chest, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't realized I'd been starving for. Later that day, I sat in a lawyer's office, a place I never imagined I'd be so soon after bringing a child into the world. The attorney was kind but direct, listening attentively as I explained everything. Every hidden search, every manipulative comment, the secret consultation, the business card in the diaper bag. "This is emotional abuse," she said plainly, "and you have more than enough documentation to proceed." Those words tasted bittersweet. Emotional abuse. Naming it didn't make it less painful, but it made it real. We filed the paperwork. Walking out of the office, I expected to feel guilt or grief. Instead, I felt like someone had lifted a weight off my chest I didn't know was crushing me. At home, my mother kept hovering, offering food, tea, blankets, anything to make me feel grounded. My father kept checking the windows as if guarding the perimeter. Their protectiveness made me realize something important. I had been more alone in my marriage than I ever was as a child. While unpacking boxes in my childhood room, I came across the diaper bag again. I emptied it carefully, almost ritualistically, wanting to purge any trace of him. But one thing stopped me cold. A folded printout tucked in the side pocket. The surgeon's financing plan. My name was listed as the primary applicant. My credit, my financial information, all filled in. The paper fluttered in my trembling hands as a fresh wave of betrayal washed over me. He hadn't just planned a consultation. He had started paperwork, without my consent, without even telling me. When I showed my parents, my father's face turned to stone. "You're safe now," he said quietly. "He won't touch any part of your life again." My mother covered her mouth in horror. How could he? How could anyone think this was okay? I didn't have an answer. Days passed. My husband tried calling again, but I blocked his number. Then he emailed. Then he used his sister's number. Then his mother's. Each message carried a tone of desperation mixed with bitterness. He alternated between apologizing and accusing me of tearing our family apart. But the more distance I gained, the more clearly I saw the truth. I hadn't broken the marriage. I had simply stopped bleeding for it. Meanwhile, I kept going to therapy. I started journaling more consistently. I exercised, not to change my body, but to feel strong again. I slept without fear of being judged for the body that carried and birthed my child. Slowly, I began to feel like Cindy again, Not the Cindy who tried to be perfect, not the Cindy who apologized for existing, but the Cindy who survived childbirth, emotional manipulation, and a marriage built on conditions disguised as love. And somewhere in the middle of my healing, my mother sat beside me one night and said, "I'm proud of you." I blinked back tears. For what? "For choosing yourself," she said softly. "I didn't raise you to shrink for anyone. I'm sorry I forgot that." Her apology wrapped around my heart like a warm blanket. My father wasn't one for long speeches, but one evening at dinner, he quietly said, "You're stronger than you think." It was all I needed to hear. Weeks later, I joined a postpartum support group with other women who felt lost, overwhelmed, or invisible after childbirth. Sharing my story with them felt like stitching together parts of myself that had long been torn. Some cried, some hugged me, some whispered, "Thank you, I thought I was alone." But I wasn't, and neither were they. My husband made one final attempt to contact me, an email that was part apology, part blame, part self-pity. He said he didn't understand how things had gotten so bad. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat with my daughter in the backyard, watching her little fingers clutch at dandelions, her giggles soft and bright in the summer air. I pressed a kiss to her forehead and whispered, "You will never grow up thinking this is how love looks." I meant it with my whole soul, because this wasn't just about leaving a marriage. It was about choosing a future where my daughter would see her mother valued, respected, and whole. A future where she would learn from me, not from my suffering, but from my strength. That night, after putting her to bed, I stood at my childhood bedroom window, watching the wind move through the trees. And for the first time in a long time, I breathed deeply. My life wasn't perfect. My heart wasn't fully healed, but I finally understood something that had taken me 32 years to learn. I didn't walk away because I was weak. I walked away because I refused to let someone else decide my worth. It was more than freedom, it was reclamation. And though the path ahead was uncertain, one truth anchored me. I didn't just leave my marriage, I walked back into myself.